Welcome to another episode of People L.
Hey, everyone.
Usually when we look at the pop music landscape, the narrative for massive, enduring success, it follows a fairly predictable formula.
Right, definitely.
We expect our icons to be these fierce, independent prodigies who, arrive fully formed on day one.
Yeah, or they're deeply controversial figures, right?
Right.
They constantly reinvent themselves through sheer shock value.
Exactly, just pure public outrage. But today, I want you to imagine a completely different trajectory.
Okay.
Picture a young actress in the 1980s. She is unceremoniously fired from an Australian kids' TV show called The Henderson Kids because producers literally yell at her for forgetting her lines.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of her own co-stars publicly labels her as being too fragile for the industry.
Which is, that's a remarkably harsh assessment for a young kid just trying to figure out her footing in entertainment.
It really is. And, the industry gatekeepers, they only get crueler from there.
Yeah, they do.
When she transitions to music shortly after, she is immediately mocked by critics as a completely manufactured product, like a puppet.
Right, a total industry plant.
Yeah, exactly. They literally dub her the singing Budgie.
The singing Budgie. Ouch.
Right. But here is the massive contradiction we are looking at today. How does that exact same quote-unquote fragile manufactured singing Budgie go on to sell 80 million records worldwide?
It's just wild to think about.
It is. How does she win Grammy Awards 20 years apart, like in 2004 and then again in 2024?
Right.
And how, as of late 2025, does she become the only female artist in UK chart history to have a #1 album in 5 consecutive decades and a #1 single in 4? Okay, let's unpack this.
It is honestly an absolute masterclass in defying expectations. And the mechanism behind that survival is what we really need to dig into today.
Exactly. So today's deep dive into the sources is a comprehensive profile of Australian pop icon Kylie Minogue.
The one and only.
We're exploring her evolution from an 80s soap star to being crowned the mother of reinvention and arguably like the ultimate survivor of the notoriously fickle music industry.
And if we synthesize why this story matters to you, the listener, it's because Kylie's narrative isn't just a timeline of catchy disco tunes.
Right. It's so much more than that.
It really is a fundamental blueprint for psychological and artistic resilience. It is a story about taking creative control when you start with absolutely none.
Yeah.
And outlasting your harshest critics, not by fighting them with aggressive anger, but through pure, unapologetic joy.
To really understand why her arc is so incredible, we have to start by setting the scene of the machine she was born into.
Right, the 80s machine.
Yes, the 1980s, Australia. Kylie is starring in the daily soap opera Neighbours. She plays Charlene Mitchell, this feisty teenage garage mechanic.
Oh, Charlene.
Yeah.
Such an iconic character.
So iconic.
Yeah.
And the cultural phenomenon of this show is honestly hard to overstate. When her character marries Jason Donovan's character in a 1987 TV wedding, it drew 20 million viewers in the UK alone.
20 million. That is just staggering.
20 million. That is literally Super Bowl level viewership for a daytime soap.
It was a staggering television event. It made her an instant, inescapable celebrity before she'd even sung a note professionally.
Right.
But to understand her music debut, we had to sort of pull back the curtain on the music industry machine of that specific era.
Let's do it.
So this was the golden age of bubblegum pop, which was driven heavily by a production trio in the UK known as Stock Aitken Waterman, or Saw Double.
Right. The sources refer to them as a literal hit factory, but what did that actually mean on a, technical level?
Well, it meant they were running a musical assembly line. They weren't like sitting down with artists, gazing into their souls and crafting bespoke acoustic ballads,
Right. It wasn't some deep collaborative jam session.
Not at all. Saga had a highly standardized technical formula. They used the same drum machines, the same synthesized bass lines.
Wow.
And they often recycled the exact same chord progressions across completely different artists.
So it was just plug and play.
Exactly. The artists themselves were frankly treated as highly manufactured visual products, not creative drivers.
You just show up and sing.
Pretty much. You were handed a lyric sheet, you sang it precisely as told, and you smiled for the camera. That was the job.
Which brings us to her music debut in 1987. She records a demo of a 1960s track, The Locomotion.
Oh yeah, a classic.
And it was initially just as an encore for a benefit concert, actually. But it's produced with this updated, high-energy dance sound.
Which essentially means, a really fast tempo, relentless electronic beats and incredibly bright synthesizers.
Right, super 80s. And it gets released and organically becomes the biggest selling Australian single of the entire decade.
Of the decade, just from a benefit concert encore.
It's crazy. And because of that undeniable commercial success, she's immediately sent off to London to work with that famous hit factory, Stock Aitken Waterman.
Yes, but there is a specific anecdote in the sources that just perfectly encapsulates the power dynamics at play here.
Oh, I love this story. It's so bad.
It is so bad. She flies all the way to London, shows up at the recording studio, and the producers had completely forgotten she was coming.
I just cannot get past this detail. Imagine showing up for the biggest job interview of your life. You've flown across the globe, and they literally forgot you existed.
Exactly. So they are in a total panic. While Kylie Minogue, the biggest television star in Australia, by the way, is literally sitting outside in this studio hallway waiting, the producers scramble.
They're just sweating in the booth.
Yeah, they realize they need a song for her right then and there. So they write, arrange, and record the backing track for I Should Be So Lucky in under 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Okay, so what does this all mean for her agency as an artist? Because if we look at this objectively, it sounds like she was just a disposable cog in their machine.
Oh, 100%.
Right, like they hand a teenager a song written in 40 minutes while she sits in a hallway. That doesn't exactly scream empowered, independent artist.
It absolutely doesn't, and she was acutely aware of it. Kylie herself later admitted that in those early years she was, quote, very much a puppet.
A puppet.
Yeah. She used a really evocative word. She said she was blinkered by her record company.
Blinkered. Like a horse.
Like a racehorse, yeah. She was unable to look left or right, let alone make her own path. She was basically in the passenger seat of her own career.
But the irony is that 40-minute song becomes a massive global #1 hit.
Oh, it's huge.
The resulting album is a smash. She is overnight a worldwide pop star.
She is. But that profound lack of control, that psychological toll of feeling like a voiceless product, it's the perfect catalyst for what happens next.
Because you can't just stay a puppet forever.
Right. If you stay a puppet, you have a strict expiration date. The industry will eventually cut the strings and just find a newer, younger puppet.
And she refused to let them cut the strings. So we move into the early 90s, and we see this desperate need to rebel and shed this versional girl-next-door image.
Yes, the pendulum swings hard here.
It really does. She starts dating INXS frontman Michael Hutchence, this dangerous, charismatic rock star, which obviously the press just devours.
Oh, they loved it.
But musically, the true turning point happens when she collaborates with the legendary Australian rocker Nick Cave on the 1995 murder ballad, Where the Wild Roses Grow.
What's fascinating here is how Nick Cave actually viewed her.
Yeah, this is so interesting.
Because on paper, you'd think this dark, brooding, gothic rocker would have absolutely nothing in common with the manufactured singing Budgie.
Right, they seem like total opposites.
But Cave had actively been wanting to work with her for years because he was obsessed with one of her earlier pop hits, Better the Devil You Know.
Wait, I have to pause you. He was obsessed with a bouncy Stock Aitken Waterman dance track.
Yes, because Cave was analytical enough to look past the relentless 120 beat per minute dance production. And he realized that the actual lyrics were incredibly dark.
Really?
Yeah. He publicly claimed that the song contained, quote, one of pop music's most violent and distressing lyrics.
Let's actually look at those lyrics for a second, because the sources highlight this beautifully.
Go for it.
The chorus goes, I'll take you back again, I'll forgive and I'll forget. When you strip away the synthesizer, she is singing about the desperation of staying in a deeply toxic, maybe even abusive relationship, simply because it's familiar.
Right.
It is domestic entrapment wrapped in a disco beat.
Exactly. Cave saw a profound depth and a melancholy in her that the hit-making machine was actively trying to gloss over with smiles and hot pants, you know.
He saw the actual human being beneath the product.
He did.
That reframing of a pop song is just brilliant, and that collaboration with Cave grants her immense indie credibility.
Huge credibility.
It essentially gives her permission to take the wheel, and this culminates in her 1997 album Impossible Princess. She writes the lyrics, she experiments with indie rock, electronica, Britpop. She is finally exploring her own voice.
But we have to acknowledge the messy reality of this era.
Yeah, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because taking creative control does not automatically equal commercial validation. Impossible Princess faced a horrific string of external bad luck.
Unbelievable bad luck. It had to be completely renamed to just Kylie Minogue in the UK market because Princess Diana tragically died right around its release.
Yeah.
You just cannot have an album called Impossible Princess in that cultural climate.
The timing was disastrous. And commercially in the UK, it was a profound failure.
Oh, man.
It became the lowest-selling album of her entire career. The backlash was so intense that Virgin Radio actually ran a promotional campaign boasting, "We've done something to improve Minogue's records, we've banned them."
That is just needlessly cruel.
It really is.
But it highlights the risk she was taking.
It does. But here is the crucial nuance the sources point out. Retrospective reviews from music critics routinely point to Impossible Princess as her most personal and arguably her most artistically significant work.
So time is kind to it.
Very kind. It proved to herself, if no one else, that she was capable of taking massive artistic risks.
And this is where the constant comparisons to Madonna really start bubbling up in the sources, right?
Oh yeah, they were always compared.
Because they were both navigating global pop superstardom in the 90s, but their philosophies on rebellion were fundamentally opposed.
Totally different approaches.
One cultural critic noted that if Madonna is the dark force, an artist who relies on intense shock value, religious controversy, and political debate to force a reaction, Kylie is the light force.
The light force, yeah.
The sources describe Kylie as the gay shorthand for joy.
I love that distinction. Because Madonna challenges you by confronting your deepest taboos. Right.
Right.
But Kylie challenges the industry's expectation of female artists by proving that you don't actually need to be relentlessly dark or controversial to have depth.
It's like, in a room full of people screaming and breaking things to get attention, Kylie realized she could command the entire room just by whispering a really catchy melody.
Exactly.
She leans into joy as her primary medium of rebellion.
Precisely. And that philosophy perfectly sets up her next massive evolution.
Here's where it gets really interesting. After the dust settles on that indie experiment, she has a massive choice to make.
Right, it's the year 2000.
The year 2000. She signs with Parlophone Records. And instead of digging her heels into this gritty rock persona just to prove a point to her critics, she does something completely unexpected.
She embraces her absolute superpower.
Pure, unapologetic dance pop. She releases the album Light Years.
And culturally, this is defined by the music video for the lead single, Spinning Around.
The iconic gold hot pants.
The gold hot pants. It was a total cultural reset. She was fully embracing her disco pop roots, but the context had completely shifted.
Because it was her choice this time.
Exactly. She wasn't a puppet being told to smile anymore. She was the ringmaster, orchestrating the joy.
And that confident momentum leads directly into her 2001 album, Fever.
Which is just legendary.
This is the era of absolute global domination. It is driven by the lead single, Can't Get You Out of My Head.
That song is a hypnotic phenomenon.
La la la.
Yeah, it's built on this incredibly minimalist, repetitive la 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 that just drills into your brain.
It really does.
They reached #1 in over 40 countries, sold over 5 million physical copies, and literally became the most played track of the entire 2000s decade.
It finally broke her into the U.S. market in a massive way, too, debuting at #3 on the Billboard 200.
Which is huge for her.
And there is a seminal live moment that the sources highlight from the 2002 Brit Awards.
Oh, this performance is everything.
She performs Can't Get You Out of My Head, but she actively mashes it up with New Order's classic 1980s track, Blue Monday.
Which is a stroke of absolute genius, because Blue Monday is this revered, serious, brooding pioneer of underground electronic music.
Very respected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by marrying it flawlessly with her bright commercial pop hook, she bridged a massive cultural gap.
Yeah.
The Guardian actually named that single live performance one of the 50 key events in the history of dance music.
Wow.
She cemented her credibility not by abandoning pop music, but by elevating it to high art.
So she has reached the absolute summit. It is 2005. She is 36 years old.
Right.
Think about your own career or life trajectory for a second. Imagine hitting the absolute peak of your professional powers at 36, midway through a massive sold-out global showgirl tour.
Yeah.
And then overnight, everything stops. She is diagnosed with breast cancer.
The human stakes here are immense, and they played out on a massive global stage.
It was everywhere.
This wasn't just a celebrity getting a private medical diagnosis. It was treated as a national event in Australia. The media frenzy was so suffocating and intense that the Australian Prime Minister at the time, John Howard, felt compelled to issue public statements of support.
And the Premier of Victoria literally had to go on television and warn international paparazzi to back off and respect her family's privacy laws or face prosecution.
It was a very dark, incredibly vulnerable time. She underwent surgery and grueling chemotherapy, which she later described with just raw, unflinching honesty as being like, quote, experiencing a nuclear bomb.
Just brutal. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the way she navigated this horrific experience publicly actually changed public health outcomes, didn't it?
It absolutely did. Medical professionals and academic researchers documented a phenomenon that became formally known as the Kylie Effect.
The Kylie Effect.
Yeah, because she was this young, vibrant, incredibly famous woman battling breast cancer in the public eye. There was a massive, statistically proven surge in young women booking breast cancer screenings and mammograms.
That is incredible.
She unequivocally saved lives simply by being visible.
Though the sources do provide a very sobering piece of nuance here regarding the fallibility of medicine.
Yes, this is important to mention.
In 2008, she appeared on The Ellen DeGeneres Show and revealed that she was actually initially misdiagnosed by her doctors.
Right. She used her platform to point out that just because someone is wearing a white coat and using expensive medical instruments, it doesn't automatically mean they are right.
You really have to advocate for your own health.
You do. It's a vital reminder, even though, she has always maintained a deep, profound respect for the medical community that ultimately treated her.
And this brings us to a brand new, highly emotional detail we found in the sources. According to the recent May 2026 Netflix docuseries, which is simply titled Kylie, there was a secondary battle that none of us knew about.
And this raises a really fascinating question about the boundaries between a public figure's duty and their right to personal privacy.
Completely. Because the docuseries revealed that in 2021, she actually experienced a recurrence of breast cancer.
Wow.
It was caught early during a routine health checkup. But unlike in 2005, when her illness was public property, she kept this 2021 diagnosis entirely private.
Completely quiet.
Yeah, she went through treatment and beat it quietly.
Which demonstrates such incredible personal boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
She gave the world her story and her vulnerability in 2005, and she saved lives in the process.
Yeah, she really did.
But in 2021, she protected her own peace. Yet she didn't hide from the trauma artistically either.
Right, she put it into the music.
Exactly. She channeled that terrifying private experience into the deeply emotional track story, which appeared on her 2023 album, Tension.
It gives me chills just thinking about the strength that requires.
Me too.
And speaking of that modern era, let's look at this mind-blowing career longevity. We are now in Act 5 of her career.
Act 5.
5 decades of cultural relevance. She doesn't just rest on her legacy either. She keeps actively innovating.
She really does. In 2018, she travels to Nashville to make a country-influenced pop album called Golden.
And then the global pandemic hits in 2020.
Right. The entire world goes into lockdown.
You would think a pandemic would completely kill the momentum of a dance pop artist who relies on clubs and arenas.
You'd think so, yeah.
But instead, she uses the isolation to solve the puppet problem once and for all.
Exactly. She decides she wants to make a disco pop album to lift people's spirits.
Which is so Kylie.
It is. But because of COVID restrictions, she physically cannot go to a professional recording studio. So she buys the equipment, sets up a home studio in her living room, hangs up soundproofing blankets, learns how to use complex audio software like Logic Pro.
Oh, wow. She learned Logic Pro.
Yes, she audio engineers her own vocals for the album Disco.
I want you to just pause and think about the poetic justice of that image.
It's beautiful.
The young girl from 1987 who sat in a hallway for 40 minutes while male producers threw a track together because she was just a voiceless puppet is now a music icon in 2020, sitting in her living room, physically engineering and comping her own vocal takes to create a masterpiece.
Is the ultimate reclamation of her agency. And it pays off historically, too.
Right.
Disco makes her the first female artist to achieve a #1 album in the UK in 5 consecutive decades.
And she still doesn't stop.
Yeah.
In 2023, she releases the album Tension, featuring the absolute viral hypnotic smash hit Padam Padam.
Which, by the way, goes on to win a Grammy Award for Best Pop Dance Recording in 2024.
20 years after she won her first Grammy for Come Into My World in 2004.
It's just unprecedented longevity.
And then the sources note one final massive milestone from December 2025. She scores a Christmas #1 in the UK with the original song Xmas.
And that highly specific achievement makes her the only UK female artist to have a #1 single in 4 different decades: the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and now the 2020s.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this right back to the opening tension we talked about today.
Yeah, let's bring it full circle.
The fragile teenager who was handed a song written in 40 minutes, mocked as a budgie, and told to just smile and sing it, grew up to become a 58-year-old icon.
An icon who is fully in control.
Fully in control of her art, her business, which, by the way, includes a massively successful wine brand that has sold over 5 million bottles, and her enduring legacy.
If we look at the mechanics of pop stardom, true multi-generational longevity rarely comes from constantly chasing the next controversy.
Right.
Or aggressively reinventing yourself out of sheer desperation to stay relevant. For Kylie Minogue, her survival came from extreme internal resilience.
Yeah.
It came from a mature willingness to own her entire past.
Yeah.
Even the cheesy bubblegum saw years that the critics mocked.
She never disowned it.
Never. And above all, it came from a relentless, uncompromising commitment to bringing her audience joy, even when she was fighting for her own life in private.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today. We live in a music industry and a broader culture that constantly demands female artists display some sort of performative darkness or edge or explicit trauma just to be taken seriously as true, valid artists.
Right.
But Kylie Minogue's entire life proves that unadulterated joy and pure, shimmering disco pop can actually be the most rebellious, enduring artistic statement of all.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Peel Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.